Welcome to the Hockey Writers Ink, the show where the writer is fresh off the presses and the ink is not dry. Relax, the keyboard is off and the press box is closed, but the mic is just getting warmed up. Join your host, Lance Green, the guardian of the blue paint turned writer, and your co-host, Ron, SteelFlyers, as we bring you all the latest on the Philadelphia Flyers. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next episode of the Hockey Writers Ink with your host, Ron Mont. Hey, how you doing, everybody? Everybody calls me SteelFlyers, but I'll tell you what, we got a very, very special show for you lined up here, folks. That's right. You see him, the man, Jim Jackson. Jim Jackson from NBC Sports Philadelphia is joining the show. How you doing, Jim?
Doing good, Ron. I guess I can call you Ron?
Yep.
All right. Yeah, I'm doing fine. How are you?
Great, doing great. We're going to talk some Flyers hockey here for this episode number 198. That's right, folks. Episode number 198. First of all, if you like what we do, please hit the like and subscribe. All right, Jim, here we go. So, what'd you think about that draft? As far as the format of the draft.
Yeah, well, obviously, it's not getting great reviews. So my take on it is I was doing a live show and part of the draft party for the Flyers down in Atlantic City as the first round was happening. And it obviously was taking forever. I think that's a relatively easy fix. I mean, ESPN threw in, or the NHL, whoever made the decision, probably both, to throw in those awkward conversations with management from the draftees after they were picked. They could probably axe that or axe the Leah Hextall or whoever does the interview after that, or have one of those two, not both. That would shorten the time considerably. Obviously, from the GMs that I've heard from that have spoken out, they didn't like the fact that they weren't all together in the same room. They thought it hampered the ability to make trades. You can't lay this one on Gary Bettman. He was not the reason it happened. This was the GMs themselves and the owners who voted 26-6.
Yeah, he said 2/3.
Yeah, it was, 26-6 is even more than 2/3. So they basically wanted it this way. It's how the NFL does it, so it has to work, right? Well, not everything. It has to be the way the NFL does it. And one thing the NHL had was a kind of neat thing where the management teams of the teams, if you will, were all there on the same floor. They could just walk over to a table and talk about a trade. It probably shortened the process a little bit. I have heard, and in fact, Danny Briere mentioned that he did like the fact that they had privacy too, which you don't have with the centralized draft. So we'll see. Maybe there's a lot of people, obviously the public speaking out about it, because I really think the main reason for that is the length of the show. And to me, in the first round, and to me, that's an easy fix. So if they wanted to keep it decentralized and shorten things up, they would take away many of the issues that people had. But the people that are going to determine the answer of whether they go back to decentralized or not, it's not the fans. It's going to be the owners and the general managers.
Obviously,
yeah. So if the general managers didn't like it enough, we'll go right back to centralized. Bettman will have no problem, I don't think, going back to centralized.
He said that. He
liked that.
So, I mean.
So we'll see where it goes. But in general, it wasn't great that way. The draft party for the Flyers was awesome. It was great having fans in the room as the Flyers were making the pick and then the trade and then another pick, and to see the euphoria over a pick, the concern over another, and to talk with them and interact with them as it was going on was a lot of fun. So that was a first experience for me that way. So that part of it was a positive experience for me. And then the second round was the second round. It basically just, flew by, lots of picks. And I think the Flyers did well with it, but the second round didn't really seem that much different from the centralized draft. So we'll see what happens. My guess is they'll go back to being all in one room. The other thing about this, Ron, that kind of hurts the perception of it is the last centralized, or what was supposed to be the last centralized draft, happened in the Sphere, which was absolutely spectacular.
Exactly.
the other ones that were in arenas and so forth, they were good, but the Sphere was
Not
unbelievable.
like, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna get the Sphere every year. So, they have to take that into consideration too. So we'll see where it goes.
Okay, I just wanted to get your take on it because I look, I'm so used to watching the NFL draft that the fact that the NHL draft is decentralized now or whatever. The thing that I really missed was the general managers and the management getting up on stage and
Yeah,
handing the draft pick the jersey.
yeah,
And with all the pomp and circumstance that is involved, I think that took away from the guys getting drafted because they didn't really necessarily get, they just got handed a jersey from someone. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And
Right,
they
and then they get the picture with the commissioner, which obviously is right off the NFL book. And then I think they tried to make up for that by having that awkward
yeah,
whatever they called it in the
in the
media
booth or
room.
whatever that was,
Yeah,
yeah.
what it was. And I mean, those just seemed a little awkward to me. So
Forced.
there was a delay to it. So I mean, I just yeah, they could redo the decentralized draft and do it better for sure. But to your point, they're never going to be able to get that back if they have a decentralized draft where you
Right.
have the scouts, some of the scouts who actually followed those players, plus the GM who made the pick and media personnel. They could still have celebrities make the picks if they want with a
Yeah.
centralized.
Yeah.
If I mean, they had Celine Dion have a pick at the Sphere, right? And they had some others make the picks. So you could do that. Michael Buffer, you know. So
I
you could
mean, you
you
can't get
can
any
do
better than
that
that.
still
Right.
with a centralized draft. The
Right.
decentralized draft brought every team having someone make the pick, but maybe you don't need that. I don't know. How much does that add to the entertainment of it? So
Okay. I just wanted to get your take on what you thought of it and how you, because I know that you were down there in Atlantic City with the draft party with the Flyers, and I know that was going to be an amazing and spectacular event.
that was fun.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And so that's the cool thing about it. But I just wanted to kind of get your take on the draft now. So now speaking about the draft
Yes.
and the team that we're talking about, which would be the Philadelphia Flyers, I'm assuming that you're okay with the number one pick of Porter Martone, a right winger.
I am. I'm not. As the pick came to the Flyers, I wasn't convinced that he was a slam dunk because I thought they were going to go center. So, I mean, Hagens, O'Brien was there as well, who I know they heavily scouted. McQueen, if you wanted to reach a little bit. Um, Martone was the best player available, proverbial. You put it around quotes, but no question that almost every scouting service, everybody I've talked to said Martone was the third best player in the draft, if not the second. And you're picking at six, so you get a chance to get a player like that. You take him. The problem is the Flyers organization is pretty strong along the wings, not so strong up the middle. So
Right.
I'm sure there was at least a, a thought of going with either Hagens or O'Brien or whoever they had their sights set on. But I think that shows the discipline that Danny and the organization have. They know it's still about adding to the talent level of the team, and they feel that Martone is more talented than the other guys. So they went with him, and then they made a move to get their center later on, a move that has been largely panned, but after watching him at development camp, I think Jack Nesbitt might have the last laugh there. He's a big, strong guy who's going to get a lot stronger. If his skating gets stronger, I don't know if he's going to ever be fast. I doubt that. But if he becomes
Right.
a strong skater,
Yeah.
this guy has tremendous characteristics outside of that. He has very
Yes.
good hands. He
Yes.
has great hockey IQ. He sees the ice well, very competitive in battles along the wall and in front of the net. So this is a guy who he might be the big center you can help build around. He's going to need at least 2 years, maybe more of development, but
Yeah.
uh, it's a project for sure. But that's what they're looking at down the road. So they got their center, not the center everyone around here wanted. And the only way this is really going to backfire on the Flyers is if Hagens develops into what people thought he was about a year ago, which was I hate this term. I hate this term. A generational star. Um,
Yeah.
the reason I hate that term, Ron, is what does generational mean? Once in a generation, right?
Right. So
So
there's
if you're once in a generation, how often do you happen? Once in a generation. So once every 20 years or so.
something.
But every year, like already, they're talking about next year's first round pick, right? He's going to be a generational player. And
Uh,
Connor Bedard was a generational player. Connor Bedard,
uh,
Connor Bedard has not been a generational player so far.
uh,
In fact, I would argue that Macklin Celebrini at this very, very early stage is looking like a better player. So,
I would
how
agree
much
with that.
generational player? We don't know. That's what I'm trying to say. Connor Bedard could turn into a generational player. He has not been through his first 2 years. And we just don't know about moving forward on these. So, we get caught up in that kind of stuff. A lot of these great players. Let's look back to the Nolan Patrick draft, shall we? When that draft took place,
Whoa.
when that draft took place, all of the reports were it was, first of all, a year before the draft, Nolan Patrick was a generational player. Then he had in his draft year an injury-riddled year,
Yep.
which dropped him down into a very good player along with Nico Hischier, but they were 1-2. There was debate as to who was 1 and who was 2, but there was no
Yeah.
debate that they were the top 2. Now there were some teams, including the Flyers, who had scouts who thought Miro Heiskanen could jump into that group, but nothing publicly in the public sphere indicated that at all, because everything you read going into that draft was, well, the Flyers have it easy because whoever the Devils pick, the Flyers picked the other guy. Well, the Devils picked Hischier, so the Flyers picked Patrick. There was no controversy. So going into that draft, at that draft, no complaints. Now here we are 8 years later.
Yeah, right.
The best player in that draft was Cale Makar.
Obviously.
Wasn't even talked about. Miro Heiskanen, like the second best player in that draft.
Right.
Elias Pettersson and Nico Hischier maybe are next. Nolan Patrick's nowhere to be found.
Right.
We don't know. We just don't know.
I'm
we
with
won't
you.
for several years. So these people who are all over Jack Nesbitt, you just don't know. This guy is a player that's going to take a little longer, but if you can get yourself a 6'5", and let's say he fills out into a 210, 215-pound center with his traits and he gets his skating, he's going to be a legitimate number 1 center, not just a number 2 that people are talking about and other people saying at best he's a number 3. We don't know what he is yet. We don't. He does have some potential to jump higher than the number 2. And if he's a number 2 center, it's still a good pick. So, anyhow, that's where we go with that. It's all projection. Porter Martone has been kind of branded as this elite number 1 winger. We don't know that either. We just don't. And Michael Misa, I loved him. I thought maybe even he was worth trading up for, but clearly the Flyers didn't feel that way. And his numbers to me indicate he might be a generational player, but I'm not hearing people talk about him quite in that same vein. So, we will see. But the one thing you can say about Danny Briere, Keith Jones, and this management team of the Flyers, they take swings. They took a swing with Michkov. It paid off. They took a swing with Jet Luchenko. We'll see if it pays off. They took a swing with Nesbitt. We'll see if it pays off.
I was just surprised because I did look at Nesbitt because he was a center, because he was so big. And I looked at him. And by the way, hop on over to steelflyers.com/link/prospect watch and check out all the prospects that we interviewed for this past draft. But I did look at Jack Nesbitt, but I had him like more below even O'Brien, or do you know what I mean? As far as where I think the Flyers would be taken at 6.
Everybody did, except other teams. Other teams.
Oh yeah,
he was gone. He was gone 3 picks later. Barry Trotz has said so. So I saw many podcasters, writers after the draft saying they could have got him at 22. Why trade the other pick? No, he was gone before 22.
Right.
So at least one other team had him right in the same range as the Flyers.
Right.
And and this is no slight at you and what you guys do. You actually talk to players, so I give you full credit on that. But a lot of these draft experts that we see see YouTube clips of these players,
Yeah.
make these assessments, and then they're upset when they're wrong. So they say the team was wrong. Well, Ron, you know, because you talk to these kids, you're around this, how much effort teams put in to looking at these kids. They look at them for years.
Yeah.
They visit them for years. They
Yeah.
talk to them for years. They talk to their coaches. They talk to their teammates.
Yeah.
So I would trust what the Flyers scouting staff has done a lot more than I would trust some guy who's got a mock draft. And the one that I do trust, unfortunately, he just retired, is Bob McKenzie, because he actually talks to scouts and draft selectors and does a poll and puts it together. And he also had Nesbitt in the teens. So, I mean, you have to project a little. And I'm afraid some of these people who have these mock drafts just don't do that. They're not qualified to do that. They're just fans of hockey, and they watch some YouTube clips. They might watch a game or two, and they make these generalizations about these guys. And then they put their mock draft together, and they have a guy lower. And if he's picked higher, it's a bad pick. Well, we'll see about that. And Jetlachenko, same thing. He was not.
Yeah. He was not. Yeah.
Many people to go as high as he was. You saw him last year in development camp. You saw him some with the Phantoms. He's going to be a player. That's going to end up being a good pick if he stays healthy. Obviously, there's always that. But I mean, so we'll see. We're not going to have answers on these questions for years, not months, but years.
Right. There's two guys that I have to be honest and tell you that from what I've seen of them, Alex Bump and Luchenko, watching them play with the Phantoms. And I got to be honest with you, man. Them playing down there with the Phantoms is good for them because they need that development time because they're not quite ready yet. I saw Luchenko build chemistry down there with Richard because Richard was able to keep up with him as far as speed wise. Do you know what I mean? And those guys kind of put together some nice chemistry, and they did pretty well. You know what I mean? And I was really impressed with, although Alex Bump didn't really show out that well with the Phantoms this year, he really showed out at development camp this year.
Well, he showed out in his first couple games with the Phantoms. Then the playoffs started, and actually Hershey targeted him. So
yeah, trust me,
mean,
I know.
The fact that they targeted him tells you enough.
Right. I mean, I'm not doubting.
I'm not with you on him needing any more development time, but I do think it would be great if Luchenko could. He can't due to the restrictions. He either plays with the Flyers or goes back to junior, which is lousy, but that's the way it is. So that probably gives Jet a pretty good chance to make the team because I don't know how much he's going to get out of going back to Guelph, which doesn't have a great team. Is he going to get that much out of it? Another World Juniors, the first World Junior experience for him was not good. They didn't play him higher than third or fourth line.
Right.
And for both of those guys, I'm not sure they got the kind of ice time in crunch time in those playoff games that the Flyers would have liked. So, it remains to be seen. Now, development camp is way below the AHL in terms of the quality. So the fact that Bump dominated, and he did dominate this development camp, does not necessarily make up for anything that happened with the Phantoms. But if he has a good training camp, he's going to make the team.
Yeah, I would agree.
Injury has opened up probably another spot. But as Brett Flair said afterwards, it doesn't matter if Tyson Forster was injured. They think Alex Bump has a really good chance to make this team. There's just things I see in him, Ron, that are above and beyond players that are already on the Flyers in some cases. His ability to go from defense to offense, his ability to lift sticks, steal pucks, and go, his ability to accept pucks in the neutral zone on the fly.
Yeah.
In terms of the rush. Obviously, his ability to finish. He's not weak along the wall.
No.
He's got a decent enough body. He's got an NHL-sized body pretty much already. I mean, he can add more strength to that for sure, but he's 6'2". He's good-sized kid.
He's a solid guy.
Yeah, and he's got that. He's got no fear.
Right.
To the middle. Now, that no fear is something I'm a little concerned about because he is going to get drilled on some of those moves to the inside when the men start, seeing that move. He's going to have to keep his head up and all that. But he has a lot of really. I mean, this is a 5th round pick, and these are the kind of picks You have to have some of these. You have to have your Braden Points, a third-round pick that pops. You have to have players like that in order to make a rebuild work. It's not going to all be the first pick, the third overall pick or the sixth overall pick or anything like that. You're going to have to find some diamonds in the rough. And I'm pretty sure Alex Bump is going to be one of those. We'll see. He's got a lot more proving to do. But make no mistake about it. He was the best player at development camp, and it wasn't close.
Okay. I mean, with the draft that Danny Briere did this year, I was basically calling for this to be a watershed kind of year for the Flyers, and I felt that it started with um, getting the coach in long before the draft, which I felt that they were able to do. They brought in Rick Tocchet long before the draft, whereas when they brought in uh, Tortorella, they brought him in what, a week or 2 weeks before the draft, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. They had other coaches in place before the draft happened. Was really happy with all the work that the management has been doing, and very impressed with what the work that they've been doing, because there's a plan, right? No matter what we outside of the building think, there is a plan going on between Danny Briere and Keith Jones and management and ownership. Okay. And I have an appreciation for that. And I see what's going on here. Almost every single player that Danny Briere drafted this year was over 6 foot, with the exception of 2 players. Okay. And he was able to get a really good pickup with the Carter Amico. I think that's a fabulous pick. Okay. I really think that guy's going to develop into, I mean, obviously he's going to take, a couple years, but I really think that's a fabulous pick for the Flyers. I was super excited about that pick. Okay.
Yeah, I mean the overall the scope of this is when you say watershed year, I believe truly that next year is that, because they're going to have all dead cap space pretty much gone.
Yeah.
So they are going to have a ton of cap space next year. We don't know who's going to be out there. They're right now, it looks like one of the best free agent crops in the history of the NHL, but obviously McDavid, Eichel, Kaprizov, Kyle Connor, some of these guys are going to sign.
Yeah. But still,
the fear I have is this year becomes next year, because a lot of players stayed put this year. We forgot, a lot of us who examined this, that with all that extra cap space means the teams that had the players also had extra cap space. So they had room to keep them. Yeah, like Brock Besser and some guys that thought they wouldn't, they were on the move, right? Well, no. Mitch Marner moved, a couple other guys, but a lot of players stayed put. So the fear is that they all stay put. Eichel, McDavid, and it's quite possible this does happen. Kaprizov, Connor, all these guys, Marty Nature, that all of them stay. And then what are the Flyers going to do with all that cap space? So that's for another time. The long-term vision of this club, Danny and Jonesy, the whole group, they have not strayed from it at all.
no.
They're continuing to acquire assets, and this draft, I'm pretty sure, will really upgrade their talent pool. They were listed by most people in the middle of the pack. I think they'll be above that now, because we're going to talk mostly, of course, everybody's going to talk mostly about Martone and Nesbitt, but the second round is going to yield some players. Very exciting group. Murtagh really looks like a player. Amico, I obviously didn't skate a development camp, but he's one of these guys without his injury, probably is a first-round pick. Sagi is
yeah.
tank. I mean, that guy is going to be a cult hero here in Philadelphia.
That's another guy I love, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're talking about real depth here in the pool just from this draft alone. And so you have that in addition to your Luchenkos and Bonks and Barkeys and Bumps that are all coming in. So you have, and also the third youngest team in the NHL to begin with. So, and they've added another relatively young player, 24 years of age, and Trevor Zegras to that pool. So the Flyers are still a very young team with young players on the way. And I have real confidence that Danny's going to manage to figure out a way to get maybe more picks next year. They don't have a ton of picks in next year's draft.
No, they don't.
They have 2 first-round picks the year after that. But I mean, we'll see. Maybe they trade one of those 27 picks to get back and get another 26 pick somehow. We'll see. But they are accumulating. The key is, of course, everyone's going to look at the elite talent. Number one center, number one defenseman, number one goalie. And where are they with that? Well, I don't think they have one. Now, do they have one that's in the making? I'm not good enough to know on any of these picks. I mean, Nesbitt, maybe. Who knows? I don't know. I don't think Oliver Bonk's number one, but I don't know. I don't know that for sure. The goalies, Zavragan might be a number one. Bjarnsson's we got to see what he's got. So they may have some, but they're going to have to go out and probably get at least one of those prime positions filled via free agency or a trade. I don't think they're all going to come in the draft, and they're going to have to wait for all of them to come. So we'll see where it goes. Can you win a Stanley Cup without one of those three things? I would venture to say some teams have won cups without number one goalie. Aiden Hill was not a number one goalie when he won the Stanley Cup, right?
Right.
And so that can be done. The number one defenseman, almost everyone says you have to have one. So do they have one right now? Does Jamie Drysdale develop into a number one, or Cam York? I don't know. At this stage of their career, I think they're probably slated for 2s, 3s, 4s, that kind of thing. But Travis Sanheim at times early in seasons here in recent years has been a number one early in the year, not for the whole year. And then as far as the centers, they did not have a number one center. Sean Couturier has been a number one center. But after that, you're talking about, we'll see. Jatlachenko could develop into one. We don't know. Jack Nesbitt could develop into one. We don't know for sure. So we have to wait and see on these things. But the bottom line is they're accumulating talent. They have a lot of wings. They can maybe trade some wings for a center or a defenseman.
Well, yeah.
And see where the goaltending goes. Sam Ersson, the jury is not completely out on him yet, whether he could be a number one. So far hasn't proven he can be one by himself, but maybe a 1A, 1B, he can. Always this time of year, Ron, we have questions. But in the rebuild, they're focusing on those. They have built up a solid group of players around that. Now it's about that elite talent and how you go about getting it. And continuing to see these youngsters develop, and maybe one of them develops into it.
There you go. I mean, all right. Well,
that sums it up.
So in the midst of all the draft and everything, we got the Cam York signing. I'm happy with that. I think that's a good deal. That's a team-friendly deal for Cam York. I think he's deserving of said contract. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he bought security 5 years
at
a rate that's probably going to be a little below the going rate for a second pair defenseman, if that's all you see in Cam York. The one thing I caution everybody about Cam York, I mean, first of all, 2 years ago, he was a top pair defenseman.
Yes.
With Sanheim. And last year, he had a shoulder injury, which definitely hampered him all year long, and a less than harmonious relationship with the coach, which clearly late in the season hampered him. A Cam York healthy, and a Cam York both mentally and physically, and a Cam York who might maybe potentially get a little power play time is a maybe 40 to 50 point player as opposed to a 30 to 40 point player, who also, by the way, can shut things down with the best of them in his own zone. So Cam York can be a top pair defenseman.
Yeah.
We kind of write him off of last year, but he had a lot of things go wrong last year. He was waiting on a contract as well, but more so, the Torts thing, and more so than even that, the shoulder thing. So I'll be interested to see how he plays with security, with the new coach, and with his shoulder feeling better. He might very well be a top pair defenseman. He and Sanheim as a pair were right at the top of the league in terms of your analytical numbers, in terms of your goals expected for and against. So if they're the top pair in the league, and they were at times the top pair in expected goals, and I'm not all analytics on you, but that usually indicates you're driving play, your team's having a chance to score far more than it's giving up chances to score. If they're the number one pair in the league, then maybe one of them is the number one defenseman. I mean, we don't call them that, but if they're
Maybe.
the number one pair, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe you get a number one pair by having two really good number twos. I don't know. But the bottom line is we get into these labels, that pair was pretty darn good. So if the Flyers can figure out the rest of their defense, Ristolainen's health, does Hunter McDonald fit into it somewhere? Is Jamie Drysdale continue his improvement? We know you're getting from Sealer. Emil Andre, can he bounce back? That's another guy who in October, November of last year into early December, I thought really looked good. And then it went
Yep.
away. He took a huge hit in Columbus and to me
Yep.
never seemed the same.
Yep.
So, we got a lot of questions to be answered for sure, but we are stuck in what have you done for me lately? We all do it. And so with Cam York, it's what have you done for me lately? He was not a top pair defenseman last year, not even close.
Okay.
He'll be the first to tell you that. But he had a lot of things going against him last year. Let's see how he does this year with new contract, new coach, and better shoulder.
Okay. All right. I like that. So the one of the last things I want to ask you about is there's now with everything that's happened with the Flyers, with Ian LaPerriere being moved into the front office. There's now a new coach with the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. John Snowden. He was their assistant. Thoughts on Mr. Snowden taking over for the Phantoms?
I can't tell you I know a lot about Mr. Snowden, as you call him. Sounds like a professor. But I mean, I watched him run development camp. The guy's got lots of energy, and
Yeah,
he was one of the guys running most of the drills. And he comes with I think the Riley Armstrong and he have a pretty good familiarity with each other. And I trust Riley, so I think he'll do well. I mean, I don't really know all that happened with Lappy, but I do know that team is A1 about development and then B about winning. I mean, I spent 6 years broadcasting the AHL, and it ticked me off sometimes when players would get recalled right as they're playing their best hockey, but that is what the AHL is all about. And I think Lappy did a good job last year in terms of the players who came up from the Phantoms,
yeah,
stepped in at the NHL level, and whether it was Helgi Grans or Andre or some of the guys we mentioned, they really stepped in and played well.
I agree.
From that standpoint, he did a great job. The younger prospects, the really young prospects, maybe they weren't getting the ice time. I don't know. I don't know what happened, but so they go in another direction. We'll see where it goes. But I will tell you this about the Phantoms next year: this will not be a team that is full of those tweener players. They're going to have a couple. You got
Right.
to have those veteran players, but they're going to have a lot of prospects. So it's going to be a fun team to watch.
And that's kind of what I'm excited about too, is with the amount of prospects now that are going to be playing with the Phantoms, and then with the way that the new collective bargaining agreement is going to take place starting in the 26 season, that's going to change the whole landscape of how prospects are going to be in the league. It's going to change how they're.
A little bit. I think, as best of my knowledge, I have not seen the new collective bargaining agreement. I don't think they have released the details yet because it's still just a verbal agreement or whatever. But I believe it's one player, one first round pick per year. So it's not like the AHL is going to become the home of 19-year-olds.
Right.
But right, for instance, this year, Jatlachenko could play in the AHL I believe, under the upcoming collective bargaining agreement, but because this is the last year of the
Old
current
one.
CBA, he can't.
Right.
So that would help the Flyers immeasurably. He's a guy they think is too good for the too good for junior hockey, not quite ready maybe for the NHL. To be honest with you, last year in camp, he was ready for the NHL, and that's why he got some games. If he has another camp like that this year, I think he's staying here for sure because he can't go to the AHL. But even if he could go to the AHL, if he has a camp like last year, he's now 19 or will turn 19 as that camp starts. Still very young player, but he's mature beyond his years, and they need a center, so you do the math. They don't need the center as much now, though. If they're going to play Zegras at center and Christian Dvorak's here now, they did lose Paling, but they still have Couturier. They still have Cates. Maybe the need for the center isn't as great as it was before those acquisitions. But if he has a camp the way he did last year, he was really impressive. So
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
we'll see where it goes. But they wouldn't have minded having the option of sending him to the AHL. They don't have that.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Next
Yeah, no,
year,
no, I
looks like
agree.
they'll have.
Yeah,
So don't expect the AHL though to become all the first round picks go to the AHL instead of going to junior hockey. I think you're
you
going to get
know,
one per year. I think
yeah,
that's
right. No, but I mean, it's going to change how the with maybe not necessarily with the collective bargaining agreement, but the other agreement with the CHL and the
yeah, that's
NCAA.
changing. That's already
Yeah,
changed. I
yeah.
mean, look at Penn State this year. That's that's yeah. So college hockey is going to be even more in the spotlight now for sure. It'll be interesting to see how the USHL survives, how the Canadian Hockey League teams adjust. They're always going to survive, but how they adjust to they're going to be losing some of their top end talent for sure. Because I mean, it's a bigger challenge playing against 21 and 22-year-olds, some cases 23-year-old and 24-year-olds in college hockey, as opposed to playing against 18, 17, 18, 19-year-olds. So if you're dominating at the CHL level, as in Porter Martone to some degree, you could say almost dominated last year. Um, wouldn't the chance to play at the collegiate level, if you're not quite ready for the NHL yet, be a nice option. So I think that's what you're going to see, a huge bump up for college hockey.
Ooh, we're hoping that he picks Penn State if he does play
Well,
college.
in talking with him, he plans on making the Flyers. So they're going to have because he can't pick the college route and
Right,
attend Flyers camp,
right. I know.
which is another thing they might want to look into.
Right,
But Um, but at this point, if he's going to go the college route, he won't be at Flyers training camp. So
right.
they'll have to tell him if you're going to go the college route, you can't make the Flyers this year. Um, if you're willing to go back to junior, you can give the Flyers a chance. But then if you don't make the team, you go back to junior. So they've got that to figure out in the very near future, and we'll see how that transpires. Off of his development camp, I would say maybe a year in college would be good for him.
I agree. Yeah, no, no, I
And
agree.
you're on a wing of a certain player at Penn State might be a really good year for him. So
I mean, man, I can't wait to watch Penn State this year. I mean, we got two Prospect Watch alums on the team now with
who's the other one?
Aiden
Yeah.
Fink, and Jackson Smith.
Oh yeah, Jackson Smith too. Yeah, that's that. I mean, we'll see. I mean, we talk about this all the time. Hockey is about chemistry too, so you got to see how it's all put together. But they're going to have some talent, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a
With that
major
other guy
upgrade.
too.
Oh, McKinnon.
Yeah.
Now that we're in the off season, now you got your school up in full swing.
Oh yeah, I've done this year. I've gone mainly one-on-ones, Ron. I often do camps where I do group Zooms, but I really didn't have the need for it this year. I've had so many people sign up, so it's been great. We've been going along at a good pace. I'm gonna take a couple weeks off in August to go on a cruise, so I don't want to
Oh, there you
overdo
go.
it. And then before you know it, it's hockey season. So, but it's been great. Had some people from some such as yourself, some students. I always struggle for the word to use for the people who've taken my courses, but
I can call
they have
students.
gone on and they're making strides, and it's such a great thing to see. So
Awesome.
it's been great. JimJacksonBroadcasting.com. There's information on my website about it, or you can always shoot me an email off of that site if you have questions.
By the way, all that information will be in the description there. So you can just hop on over to that link and sign up for Jim's school. Let me tell you something. You need to do this if you want to do what you want to do as far as broadcasting. I mean, this guy is one of the best. I've learned from the best, and I have to, I have to tell you, you got to go take care of this as far as signing up for Jim's school. So any events for Alex's Lemonade this summer? I know you
Yeah,
did something
we
here a little
those
while ago.
Yeah, those the big events were the 25th anniversary of her first ever lemonade stand at her high school or grade school, I should say.
Yeah, yeah.
which was back in late May, I believe. And
May, I
then
think,
we
yeah,
had the
Memorial Day,
Great
I think.
Chefs event. We had the telethon at CBS. So now we have a little bit of a respite. But there's also Lemonade Days, which continued through or continued through the month of June. And then you've got things going on into the fall. There's always something
Awesome.
going on. And they have raised upwards of $350 million for research for childhood cancers, also
Yes.
for support of families suffering from that. So
Amen.
definitely something that's near and dear to my heart. And Ed Snyder Youth and Hockey Education as well, two that I do a lot. I make a lot of appearances for those because they're just both absolutely outstanding charities, and they do so much for the community.
Awesome. And the links for Alex's lemonade stand will be in the description as well. Be sure to hit that and make a donation if you can.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate that, because that really does go to the research, and it really does go to the support of those folks that are dealing with that childhood cancer. So be sure to hit up Alex's Lemonade .org, I believe is what it is, right?
Yes.
.org. Yeah. So that
Yep.
information will be in the description down there. So hit that, and also hit Jim's school too. So well, I'll tell you what, Jim, I'm excited about this coming year. I'm excited about training camp. I can't wait to see how the Flyers look. I can't wait to see what happens with the Phantoms. I'm excited about this year. Like, I try not to get too overly excited about things, but it's hockey and I can't contain it. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's watching something build is an exciting
it is.
thing. I will say this. I mean, 5 straight years out of the playoffs, so there's a whole part of the fandom that's also tired of that. But making the playoffs this year, oddly enough, doesn't have as much to do with the ultimate with this team as what they've just done in the draft and with the Zegras acquisition and such. The team can make the playoffs by just improving their goaltending and improving the power play. Where have you heard that before?
Gee, right here on this show from
Yeah,
you.
right. So if they can improve those, and Tox had some pretty good experience with
Yep.
power plays, and so has Yogi Shveikovsky, one of his assistants.
Yep.
And the goaltending, I mean, I don't know, Vladar, we'll see. I think it's really Sam Harrison who hopefully will show the improvement. And with Sam, he'll give it to you over 10 game stretches. It's a matter of whether he can do it over a longer stretch of
Right.
time.
Right.
But if they get, I mean, they had bottom level save percentage. They were at the bottom of the league and the 30th ranked power play last year. They just need to get the power play up closer to 20, get the goaltending up closer to the middle of the league, and this team
I
will
agree.
very much be in playoff contention.
I agree.
So that's that. But having said that, with what they've done in the draft, what they're doing accumulating talent, they're still shooting for down the road and where they're going to be good
Agreed.
every single year.
Yeah, agreed. Well, folks, here you go. We got the main man, Jim Jackson from from NBC Sports Philadelphia, the voice of the Philadelphia Flyers, to join us here on the show and talk all things hockey, Philadelphia Flyers, Phantoms, you name it, we talked about it. Thank you all very much for checking this out, man. Hop on over to steelflyers.com/link/Hockey Writers Ink to check out all the great shows and all the great stuff we do over there. Also, check us out on YouTube, and also follow us on X and all that stuff. We'll have all the socials in there for you. Thank you all very much for hopping on. We'll catch you on the next episode.